Well, I would just be curious what it was like to have Ruthie as a citizen if she were in my district, like what she would have been like as a citizen.
I'm sure she would have been. I'm sure she would have been pretty rough. Yeah, she was on council when I got there. Now she had gotten back on council after losing the mayor election, and that was 2 or 3 years before I started.
Oh, okay.
So then she was on there all the time until she passed.
Okay. What was she? Was she at large?
Yeah.
Okay, she was at large.
Yeah, she was District 5, and then she ran for mayor. And after she lost that by 69 votes, she ran for at large.
Are you telling me that local elections are very close?
Some of them are. John Lopez beat Dick Frigo by 8 votes.
And people think that their vote does not matter.
It certainly does.
It certainly does.
That one really shows you 8 votes.
So as a city council, I mean, you've done this for a long time, so you have experience. What kind of advice would you give to citizens about being involved in like what goes on in the city?
Well, the first thing I would do if I was moving to a town and one day my wife and I want to either have a second house or maybe a house down somewhere on the Texas Gulf Coast. But if I was moving to a new town and I wanted to get civically involved, I would first start going to a few city council meetings just to sit there and listen and look. Personally, I can tell more about people by looking at their interaction with other people than I can by listening to what they say sometimes.
I'm so glad you said that because, first of all, not enough people attend the meetings. And I attend, so I'm a part of my daughter's school. We have our own school board meetings. So I have to miss a lot. I have to pick which meetings I'm going to be going to. But I always tell people, not enough people attend meetings. And there is very important to see faces. People think that when you go to a meeting that you have to show up to talk. You can just show up to listen. And the fact that you do that is very important. I'm glad you just said that because you as an elected official, seeing people in the audience, number one, shows you that people care.
Yes.
And number two, just like what you said, body language speaks volumes. Tell me more about that.
Well, if I was starting, I would be able to see how the interaction was first between the people that are the management and the other people that are working for the city. Plus, my neighbors. If I hear somebody getting up or even just hear them talking about something that affects me, I could go over and introduce myself. And if I'm new to a city, that's how you get to know people. Go to church with them. You just gotta. And if you want to be interested in city government, that's a way to do it. Of course, the other ways are always put your name up for a board or commission.
Why do you think it's important for people to be a part of that process, like locally?
Locally, first thing locally is the most important to me, is the most important government there is. I got my toilet needs to flush.
Right.
I want the fireman to come if my house is on fire. I want my trash picked up.
Right. All
of these other state, national, all that stuff, that's important too in its own way, but the quality of my life depends on my local, what's going on in my city. You can definitely tell that if you go to cities that aren't as well off as we are.
That's right.
Not dollar-wise, but people-wise.
Right. I can't understand why people are not as engaged with local city stuff. I don't get it.
Well, I'll tell you part of why, what I think is why, and why I'm kind of glad that's the case. Local elections are nonpartisan in Texas. And so people don't get riled up about my party this, my party that, but party politics doesn't pick up my trash.
That's very right. Junior said almost exactly the same thing that you just.
So that's one reason why it's not quite the involvement and you don't get bombarded with stuff. But by God, if somebody's trash doesn't get picked up or if their water's not running, then the city government's the most important thing they got.
Or there's a pothole in front of their driveway that they can't get
around. Then it's very important, and down here grappling and hollering. And I think that's a pretty good time to catch somebody too.
Sure.
Because if I have people emailing me or texting me or calling me about a problem they've got, I'll ask them, you got a solution for me? And I'll try to we'll see if your solution will work. And then, okay, you want to help me take care of this one? There's a pothole right down the street from you. Let's see if we can get together and make your solution work for that pothole too. And try to catch them right there. And you lose a lot, but you catch a few every now and then. And that's where I get most of my board and commission appointees.
What a great idea. That is such a great idea.
My lady that's on the planning commission, one day I was running for election, knocking on doors, and she had some gripes. And okay, what are we going to do about it? I said, first thing, I got to get elected, and then the second thing is, okay, what do you want? How do you want to handle that situation? And I realized she was sharp as a tack.
What percentage of people do you think even know that we have boards and commissions and that they can be appointed to them?
Excellent question.
Do you think it could be better?
You need to be on the radio. I'd go with 10%.
I probably would too.
Really poor number.
Yeah. It's hard because and what you do is you go after people that you hear people tell you that there's a need. And then you're like, you know what? You're in a position where you could actually do something about it. And that's empowering.
Well,
which is great.
Animals, dogs have my heart. We'll start with that. And dogs running loose, people will holler about that. And those are the folks, that's where I grab, okay, I can tell the way you're talking about these dogs, not these dogs running loose and pooing in my yard.
Right.
But these dogs are running loose and they might get ran over.
Right.
That's the person I'll grab and say, hey, why don't you think about the animal shelter board?
That's such a perceptive way of looking at human beings because not everybody sees them that way. What you're doing is you're seeing an opportunity to empower someone to make a change for themselves and to be in position of authority to where they can actually help with things. And that's sometimes the best teaching and the best learning that you can do.
Oh, I think so.
Is especially when it comes to government, because once you see the restrictions, the limitations, it changes how you see things.